The countdown to the A7FL playoffs have begun. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 3-on-1 podcast on A7FL.tv, YouTube, and wherever podcasts are sold. I'm Matt Ryan, and joining me, as always, he's my quarterback, and he is one of my very best friends. He is Corrins Hammond, and joining us in the Big Rob spot, Big Rob, a little bit later on in the program, will be joining us from the Bachata Dome. That's what we call it. That's what I call it. That's what I put in the podcast description last week, because Bachata Bob was back last week in our podcast with Derek Duncan. But we'll have Bachata Bob joining us. It's Josh Pruneda from the All-Pro Jaffos. Not All-Star Jaffos. That doesn't rhyme. Can't get the fucking plug right. You know what? LJ, you could take this job. When it comes to covering the A7FL, very few cover it in the way the Jaffos do, and Country K not able to join us with his 1987 internet that comes through a modem that may or may not just be a retrofitted Hulk Hogan LJN. But, Josh, great to have you here on the show. We've wanted to have you on the pod for a while. There's a lot of people we want to have on the pod, and it's a weird process because we can only do one of these a week. Because I don't know if you guys know, I work 5 jobs, Corey has 9 kids, and Rob has 5 jobs and 4 kids.
And another podcast outside of this, if
Yes.
I understand correctly. So, yeah, you guys got a lot on your plate. But, again, appreciate you guys for having me on. And it's been definitely a real fun experience getting to cover the A7FL, being able to have you guys on the podcast, which, again, we appreciate immensely from you guys, having Big Rob, having Corey, having David Isaacs, having Matt, having essentially almost everybody, trying to get Center on too. So we'll see how that one goes. But it's been a fun year, man. It's been very interesting, but it's been fun for sure.
It's certainly
I just got a text, Matt. I just got a text from Will Franklin, the head referee, and he says, and I quote, "I am never calling a roughing a passer penalty again because you have some rando on the show instead of me." And I will say, Will, that yes, we did promise, and we will get you on the show. You're doing a great job running the referees for our league, but Josh Pruneda is not just anybody. You could check out his and Country K, the 6'10 Beast from the Southeast, their podcast on the West Coast, the All-Pro Jaffos, the highly elevated sports talk for the highly elevated sports fan. And, they have a lot going on, and, it is what it is. And if you check it out, you'll get the whole picture. But, Josh, you started it. You guys cover the entire sports universe. You cover the NBA goings on, the NFL, and you guys organically started covering the A7FL, and even have one of my favorite ideas that people that cover our league have is the way that this league translate into being the Olympic football. So just to give you a little, and our listeners, give you a little intro and our listeners a little perspective. Yeah, Will, I just got the reply text. You're still not calling penalties for me, but you understand having Josh on now. We'll get you on, Will, I promise. But first of all, thanks, Josh, for coming on. Go ahead.
I feel like we're going to have Will on championship week when we're out there. We might have to do a lot. I'll talk to
I feel like if we do a live,
committee.
he is going to fight somebody in some situation, or he's going to just the whole crew, he's going to suspend as he's, commonly doing these days, and he's going to make his way onto the show. But go ahead. What were you saying?
I was going to say we have him on. We might do a live podcast championship week. See if the steering committee would want us to do a live podcast from the Anderson Automotive Fieldhouse. There's another championship game we may be calling. Mike Tice might be involved.
Tice?
Mike Tice.
Not
No.
the former Minnesota Vikings coach.
I was about to say, I'm like,
No,
that guy?
Mike Tice. Like, there's going to be a combine, a A7FL style combine at Anderson Automotive over the championship weekend. There's more details at a7fl.com/championship. That's a7fl.com/championship. You can also get championship tickets. I know Country K and Josh are going to be making their way down to the Anderson Automotive Fieldhouse to hang out with me, Rob, Corey, and hopefully all of you. So go to a7fl.com/championship. Buy the fucking tickets. But when we get to week 7 of the A7FL, kind of chalk in how we saw things going. We had the Force beating the Kryptonite. I don't think we had the Force pummeling the Kryptonite the way they did, and there seems to be a bit of an issue with Darnell Richardson and the Kryptonite right now. Corey, what are you hearing, or what do you think we're going to see in 2 weeks when the Kryptonites step into the A7FL playoffs?
Well, we got, some goings on, and I don't know the specifics. I did talk to Darnell Richardson after the game, and, there were times where, this entire season, he's shown what, we know that he's capable of. But with a lot of the exits roster-wise, they went from being one of those championship contender type teams to the bottom of what I would call the top tier in the A7. They're in around that 12, that 11, that 10 spot. And their first game is going to be against the Insomniacs. And if they had a tough time with the Force, they're likely going to have a tough time with the Insomniacs. So you can't count them out. But we also saw that when, for whatever reason, and I don't know enough to specifically report it, Matt, I do know, kind of in general what happened, and I think they talked about it a little bit on our we'll call it our distant cousin podcast, The Other Side of the Ball, and you can check them out now pretty much exclusively on Facebook, and I think we'll get into a little bit of their conversation that they had recently later on in the show. But to get the more, the down and dirty details of the actual issues there with the quarterbacks for the Kryptonite, you check them out. But I did see Gregory Smith, the quarterback we call Snoop, in there, and he steps in nicely. He had, we got to know him a little bit in the fall with the Gold, and other than a couple of bad plays, he was in there playing representative quarterback against the Force. I think the story from week 7 in that game is, what do the Force feel comfortable with doing with D. Fox at the quarterback position? We saw what Rock Briscoe can do, and I'm glad that LJ and Rob were in a position where they kind of have to, go along with me a little bit. I've been talking about how Rock Briscoe, when he's out there in his element against the types of defenses that they're seeing consistently out there, and other side of the ball, you remember Rock Briscoe we saw against what happens in the Northeast on defense specifically, and maybe for a certain defensive back from Sickwit, a team I'm a fan of. We'll get into that even more specifically. But when Rock Briscoe was facing those Vegas defenses, including a Sickwit defense in which he was, relatively effective, and at times the Insomniacs where I'd seen him even take off against that defense. Rock Briscoe was a pretty good quarterback, and stop disrespecting his name, but what we saw from the, change of pace quarterback in D. Fox, an enormous quarterback, by the way. It'll be interesting to see in their first-round matchup against Sickwit if they really let him loose and kind of see what he can do at the top end, because I think that it's an interesting kind of philosophy. Do you go with the quarterback that may have a shorter ceiling, but definitely has the higher floor, or with nothing to lose, playing a team that you didn't necessarily struggle with, but you lost earlier in the season? If you go with the high ceiling guy, a guy that's going to, likely be used in a way that he's a ground control quarterback where you got to take down D. Fox, you got to commit a lot of willpower and good form tackling, which Sickwit is prone to do, but not most of Vegas. And I'm talking directly to some of the things that we heard recently. So for me, that force, that Kryptonite game, Week 7, it leads into a playoff situation where the Kryptonite look like they're going to be, sent home packing pretty early, and the force, they made their statement on a statement Sunday, Matt, where teams were either moving back into the position where we thought they were, or they were accelerating forward and trying to prove that they're some team to be taken seriously and for real. Reminds me a little bit of this force story, at least last year, when they lost in the regular season, had to rally, had these comebacks, had these, pretty tight games in the end that built their character. Almost a full calendar year later, they're right back in the playoffs with a lot of hope. And based on what they did to the Kryptonite, pretty good prospects. It's just tough draw in round 1.
It is a tough draw in round 1, and Josh, want to hear your thoughts. But let's bring up the playoff bracket here on your screen if you're watching us on A7FL.TV. The Insomniacs do play the Kryptonite when we return to action on June 4th. The LA Aces have a home game against the Vegas Hunters. They are at the bottom of the Vegas bracket. The Sick With It will take on the Force, and the Vibe will take on the OTT. Josh, what do you make of this bracket, and do you see any surprises coming out of round 1?
A few. It was one thing that we've actually kind of talked about on our show, when the real unknown, at least to us in this entire situation, is the LA division. Now, they've only played each other. The Aces and the Vibe have only played each other the entire year.
And
so there wasn't
until
week
week
7 they got and then in week 7, just
right.
kind of another recap. They got the chance. The Aces played the Pit Bosses and straight hounded them.
That's
Uno
what
was able to get a
that's
little
what
busy.
we were saying going
Right.
into this week. We were wondering, okay, they've only played each other. How are they going to fare against, the Vegas teams? And now the Pit Bosses, I've been praying for them all year. It just doesn't seem to be working. And for the gold, in my opinion, the lower tier teams of Vegas, but the LA team still showed out. So when I look at the playoff bracket going, there's a really good chance that the LA Aces can get through the Hunters. There's a really good chance that the Vibe can beat the OTT and move on. My favorite team right now out of Vegas is the Sick With It. That's just me personally, the way I've seen them play out of that division. If I had to choose a team, I kind of go with them. The Kryptonite, we kind of thought, we didn't think the blowout or the dog walking that happened against the Fort, we didn't really think that was going to happen. We actually thought Kryptonite had a little bit of a better shot than that.
It was close for a while, right?
It was, but then it got away from him. And that's not something that we expected. We thought the Kryptonite actually had a decent chance of maybe pulling off a win. But the Insomniacs, that's a tough ask for anybody in the first round. Sick With It and Force is going to be a good game.
I have a question, because walking into the season, we on this podcast, and I believe on the other side of the ball as well, not to speak for them and not to speak for your show, Josh, but we saw the Fall Brawl as an indicator to what we would see in our regular season. But the Fall Brawl, technically, those roster spots didn't hold. And we saw player movement that matched any player movement period we've had in this league. It was a mad rush.
Yeah.
And now we're hearing about maybe even more
Pit
teams.
Bosses suffered because of that.
Yeah, the Pit Bosses suffered because of that. Now Coach Bartley's not even with the league anymore. He's moving on to new things. And just the total dynamic of the division shifted on a dime. And this is a division that has yet to define itself for more than a full regular season. Because we only saw a few teams last year. We saw 3 teams in 2022. Now we have 8. And now you have LA in the mix. It's going to be real interesting if Reno gets involved, if these different areas evolve, because how are the lower and middle class teams, like an OTT, like the Hunters, how do they respond? Do they do what we've seen in Maryland and we've seen in New Jersey, and that's some idea of consolidation? Because the top 2 teams in Nevada, the Insomniacs and the Sick With It, basically pulled the 2011 NBA free agent period. They pulled the big 3 and everybody else. They got Amari. They got Melo. They got everybody who they wanted to get and then some. They somehow got Nick Young. He wasn't even in the league in 2011. Does that speed running give them advantages that we don't have in New Jersey? Because there's way more players in Nevada, it feels like, than there are in New Jersey. And in terms of like quality to quantity, I think that the amount is about even in terms of guys who can make a real difference for a team, and then guys who are playing because they can still play. If that, and I'm not trying to insult.
That's a shot at me.
That's
not a shot at me.
No, it's not. You're a starter
It's
in the
always
league.
a shot.
Shut up.
Any old age is a shot at you, Corey.
It's not
Just
even.
know this.
It's not, and it's not even old age. It's just you see guys on teams who never step on the field and play, and then you see people who play on teams and they underperform. It's not that they're bad.
And I think the other side of the ball, who covers this division specifically very well, in a couple episodes ago, they actually had a conversation in which they judged, level of team versus level of team, and said, who's the better team? And they started at 5, right? So the 5th best team in the Northeast would be the Renegades. And they said, are the Renegades a better team consistently than OTT? And although obviously you have to give a shout out to Savion Cunningham based on how ridiculously he plays week in and week out, the other side of the ball, this isn't me, this isn't Matt, this isn't Rob, and this isn't even the All-Pro Jaffos, who, by the way, in our dry run of this earlier this week when we had issues, we specified that what coast are you from?
Oh, we're on the West Coast.
Right. So if you were to
Sacramento
be biased,
Bay Area.
If you were to be biased about any of this, other than being a true fan of the Boston Omegas, my guys, it would likely feel more reasonable for you to be biased towards the West. But Renegades, OTT, other side of the ball said OTT. Animals,
Ain't
Kryptonite.
no way. Ain't no way.
Other side of the ball. Other side of the ball. Excuse me. Other side of the ball said Renegades, not OTT.
Okay.
It is. Yeah. It's. I was already thinking the next step.
So, I was gonna say at least be realistic, guys.
Renegades, OTT, Renegades, right?
Right.
And no disrespect to OTT, but that was what the other side of the ball said. 4 spot, Animals, Kryptonite. Animals, 3 spot, Force, you. And as great as the Force looked, and no disrespect, I really appreciate not only how they've built week in, week out, getting better, which is, a thing that I think all of these teams are gearing up, and the best teams that have a chance in the playoffs are doing that. I think the Force have had a great season, and they've turned around, and they look really good going in. Voodoo Reek is a special player. They got talent all over, and, lost in this is how much of an impact that Pac-Man Jones has already had in New Jersey in the playoff games that we saw him last year. Are they better than the U? I don't think so, and neither did the other side of the ball. And then you look at the 2 teams, and this is when I said that Derek was getting a little blasphemous. Sick with it, BIC. Now, Josh, you said you're a big fan of Sick with it, and so am I. Jeremy Geary at the quarterback, their wide receiving core, who also is led by returner, and we always, whenever I mention Lavish T, he's flashy. He's Lord Tenyin from Demon Slayer. Check it out. It's a good reference. He agrees, by the way, and so does Shedrick Goodrich from BIC. But I'll ask you, Josh, who do you think is a better team? Just put them right up against each other in a neutral site. Let them figure it out.
if we're
No
talking about
BS.
the BIC and it's the BIC, and it's just
And it's not because Sick-Witted is bad, right? There's nothing bad about
exactly.
them.
It's
The
not
level of
that.
experience, and
I
just
don't
in time to make sure this is put in the right context.
exactly.
Can you hear
why I
me,
feel like
Bachata?
Big
said,
Rob would
did
also
I?
have my
Did I?
head if it would have gone the other way there.
No, I
You
but
said,
said,
can you hear me?
did I? Oh, I can hear you now. Yeah, I can hear you loud
So
and clear.
and then the top team, as we were going over, and just to fill you in, Rob, and listeners who were maybe zoning out because I was talking too long. When the other side of the ball was ranking top teams in Vegas versus top teams in Florida, the Northeast, when they were doing all of the rankings, they only hesitated when they said Sick-Witted they felt was a better team than BIC based on what they've seen, which I thought was a lot of cap, and it's fine. They're local guys. Let them be local. And then when it gets to Watchmen and Insomniacs, you have a legitimate discussion about who's the more loaded on paper team or have the better season. But I'll say this unequivocally. I think everyone here on this panel would agree with me, and privately, a lot of people that cover the Vegas side would agree with me as well. Despite what anybody says, when they're being pressured by an actual athlete, an active athlete in their studio, a beautiful studio, by the way, saying how great and how hard and hitting the Vegas division is, it is
again,
not the same as a Northeast division that has been built from the grass and Glasstown beef, which an offensive line featuring the Miller brothers for the U and Deshaun, what's his last name?
Johnson.
Deshaun Johnson, number 76.
A literal
BICs,
Green
yeah.
Bay. Bro, he's a Green Bay Packer practice player. Do you understand that means he's on his worst day, he's better than most people. 90% of the league on his worst day.
And he's probably athletic enough to play tight end in Vegas and catch head-top touchdowns on people. But he plays on a team with Dot Boss, so he's pretty far down the roster. What I was saying, Rob, is that when that offensive line for the U made the BIC defensive line look a little bit meh, it was because of the physicality that the Miller brothers and Deshaun were bringing and icing out Verardi. That does not, just because you watch that one tape, mean that the Northeast does not hit. Look, I went out to Vegas.
So this is Scott
McCorkle
McCorkle that said that? Scott McCorkle said that?
It was mostly our guy and a really good corner, Daniel Packer, who you will never catch without a hat on. And to be fair, in his blasphemy about the Northeast, was wearing a Yankee hat, which I don't know if that makes it better or worse.
But my
what he was
thing
saying
is
that the physicality in Vegas is unmatched, and it ain't sweet.
Okay, so
but Josh and Rob.
But here's where it contradicts itself. How you? Oh yeah, we're more physical. It's more that you literally just went down and compared your top 5 and said the Northeast was better. How do you go and say, oh, we're better teams, we're more physical, we're more
I don't know.
If you're going to be making these types of comparisons, you have to educate yourself on the other side as well. Like you go other side of the ball, that's great, but you need to study the other side of the ball. You have to actually see what you're playing against.
I'm piggybacking off of that because that's my main issue with what's being said. And the Packers are smart guy. I talk to Pack a lot, actually. Pack's a smart guy. So maybe some of it is, a little bit of sauce to spice shit up. But I don't think Pack really is sitting there thinking that the Northeast doesn't hit. Ask Trey Robinson if the Northeast hits. Like, Trey Robinson is one of the most electrifying players in Vegas. He comes from the Northeast. One guy who wasn't even one of the best teams in the Northeast is dominating your entire league. Listen, I don't even know what the fuck the other side of the ball was talking about. If they said anything along the lines of their top teams being able to match up well with our top teams, bro, oh my God. It's like you have to pull certain players to the side. Talk to Tone Smith. Talk to Pac-Man Jones. Talk to those guys that were out there that felt it. Don't guess. If you weren't, was Packer there? I think Packer was there. Was he on the force?
I think
well,
he was a
he
pit
actually
boss.
was a pit boss, but he got injured for
Perfect.
the season, and he
Okay.
in
Shit.
his
Okay.
first
Okay.
action in the A7FL, or I think it might have even been in semi-pro, he did get injured from a hit, and wasn't able to come back. Not saying
Okay.
that
All
that
right.
has
So
anything to do with this
no.
conversation.
Yeah. No. That's
I mean, and on top of
football.
that,
I
they're
don't.
not
I
even
don't
they're
think
Shit
he
not
played
even
happens.
anybody
including the
but from
chaos or
Jersey.
the Nightcrawlers. They're not including any of those either.
Yeah.
Well, what I'll say
Shit
is
happens,
this.
right? But
What I'll
hold
say
on,
is
wait,
this. To
hold on,
be
Corey.
fair to the
Hold
conversation.
on.
Let Rob
Go
let
ahead.
Rob
No,
go,
fuck
and then
being
Corey, you
fair.
give context.
Stop being. That's my problem with Corey. You're always trying to be fair to motherfuckers that be saying the most blasphemous shit. Listen to what I'm saying to you. I've spent the better part of 3-4 weeks warning the Northeast to not sleep on the insomniacs, not sleep on sick with it, and keep an eye on the fucking Nightcrawlers. I am giving Vegas the best and the only one that I could possibly give them. If you listen to the other side of the ball, and for some reason you think that them Northeast boys don't hit, you're going to they're gonna put your lights out when you run into them. Do not listen to those guys who haven't experienced some of the things Pac-Man and Anthony Smith and RTC and those guys. Go ask Rock Briscoe if they fucking hit. Go watch that Force film and find out if they hit. Because that's the same Force team that used to bust y'all ass last year. I get it. New blood, all this, all that. And I know Scott McCorkle, I like the guy, but you've only played a full. You don't really know what this is yet. Your fall, I wouldn't have played. I would have been at home, and they would have called me for the championship game. I'm not waking up to play a bunch of bums in the fall. I'm only playing the best teams. There's a reason for that. I'm not wasting my body, my energy on bums who are trying hard because they're playing Big Rob. No. Stop thinking that these Northeast dudes don't hit. All those highlights that made A7FL popping, they come from the Northeast. They're not coming from Vegas. Some from Florida. They're not coming from Vegas. They're coming from the Northeast. When people were getting their fucking brains knocked around, they're coming from Northeast. Stop thinking dudes don't hit, or you're going to have a very rude awakening come playoff time, because y'all might still think this shit is flag. This is not flag. This is A7FL Northeast. Put some fucking respect put some respect on it, bro, for real. That shit is wild.
How about
I'm
this?
sorry
How
I'm
about
so
this, Rob?
heated about it, but
I was
damn.
gonna use this as a
Recently-
receipt, and then he said "fuck" more than he said football, and I'm like, I can't use a goddamn word of it.
So Rob, recently,
My fault.
what up, Country K? The 610 Beast from the Southeast joins us.
Oh
Rob,
no.
On the Facebook page, I thought I was doing him a favor, and not as a troll. Every time I do anything, people think I'm trolling. Sometimes I'm just kind of
Wonder
being
the
genuine.
fuck why.
I don't know. There's no reason for them to ever think that. Seriously,
Oh, of course not.
go back on
Never.
all of the things that I've ever said. If anyone is upset, it's just Baltimore, period. But I posted, Rob, Ron Clerk's highlight tape as a fun way to be like, hey, check this out. And a response that I got back is that was just regular type stuff. And now I've had
you know
the
that
pleasure-
phrase. You know that phrase. You know that phrase. You had to be there.
I do know that.
You know that phrase.
I'm familiar.
Like
with that phrase.
the problem, and that video is a beautiful video showcasing one of Ron's craziest seasons, one of his most phenomenal defensive seasons. Now, as a guy that was on his team at the time, and Ant Live would tell you this, I was like, Ron, we was talking about defensive players, right? He put Ron up there, and I'm like, Ron, why are you putting Ron up there? You got to remember, I was on his team. I didn't have to game plan for that man. So, of course, naturally, because he was on my team, I never thought about Ron. But when I went back and watched that film and seen what Ron was doing to grown men, if those guys saw that film, and because Packers hit was great. They were showing off Packers hit. Bro, there's a Packer hit in every game. Every game. By the lowest level of players, there's a hit like that in every game. And Packers' hit was good. But if that's the hit that you want the Northeast to look at and be like, oh, man, they hit out there all right. Nah, that ain't it, Chief. That was just you, Packer. I don't see nobody else doing that.
I've seen Dave Pedersen truck a dude, and he's 116. Remember, LJ calls him Jesus of Nazareth? I've seen him
but they can't tackle in Vegas. They can't tackle in Vegas. How about that one?
I'm talking about David Pedersen. He plays for the Renegades and whatever in Jersey. I've seen him truck a dude.
Oh, I have no idea what that is.
More savagely. Yeah.
I've
seen him truck a dude more savagely than some of the stuff that I see consistently out there. And my guy's 116. Shout out to Dave Pedersen. You guys know. If you've seen the Renegades getting blown out by the Baltimore Cobras. That's the one highlight we get from that game. Of course you did, Rob.
But as we move closer to the playoffs, I want to get this from Rob and from Country K. What's the feeling heading into the playoffs? What are you guys feeling? Ooh. Rob, what are you hearing heading into the playoffs? Because I think we have a bunch of unique perspectives here, especially including Country K and Josh, about how we're feeling walking into these playoffs. And I'll put the brackets up on the screen as we go through some of this stuff. And also at the end of the broadcast, we will have the final A7FL top 10 of the 2023 season. You're gonna want to watch. You're gonna want to stick around. But Rob, what are you feeling and what are you hearing heading into the playoffs?
All right. As far as me, I'm excited because again, the playoff matchups on June 4th, it's like a gift. It's my birthday that day. I get to actually watch some of these amazing games and just be there for some of them, call some of them. I'm looking forward. If I'm not mistaken, it's Sick-Witted versus Force, right?
Sick-Witted Force is the matchup, and we'll put it up right here.
I'm
screen.
Very excited about Sick-Witted versus Force. The wild card in New Jersey, the rematch between the Renegades and the Animals. I'm excited. But as far as what I'm hearing in the league, there seems to be a very strong uncertainty going on. There's a lot of uncertainty, and I can't be specific as to where it's coming from, who it's coming from, because believe you me, I talk to a lot of players. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of we don't know who's gonna do this or who's better than that. The top teams right now, the top 3 teams, they themselves have put themselves in a position to have to prove themselves all over again. So when I talk to my peers, no one is really being honest enough to give me a clear cut out of the 3-headed monster that we have in the Northeast. Who's going to be the one that makes it out to go against Florida? No one's really being clear. So it's a lot of uncertainty about who's going to make it, who's going to do it. And that's really, I guess that's better for me, better for us, better for the media. Maybe that's why it's so exciting, because they don't know. So shit, I don't know either. So it makes it better. It makes it more exciting. So, and that's for the Northeast. And honestly, from what I'm hearing from Vegas, the lower tier teams are looking to, add new players, upgrade. There's some quarterbacks who feel like they weren't really getting much love. They think their offensive line sucks. They're good. There's teams already ready to rebuild, jump to other teams. There's a lot of things going on from the bottom tier. But the top 3 guys, the top 3 teams over there, they seem pretty solid too. The Force, I don't really hear too much bad things about what's going on over there. The Insomniacs are ready, and Sick-Witted is just tired of people thinking they're not as good as the Insomniacs. So honestly, I don't really know what they're feeling. I just feel like everyone on the West Coast is ready, and everyone on the East Coast is just uncertain about who's going to come out on top, but those guys are ready to play football.
Well, let's talk about the Northeast for a second, because if you take a look on your screen, if you're watching on A7FL.TV, the teams playing in the opening round of the A7FL playoffs in the Northeast, if you're the Patterson U, you have to defeat in succession the Snow Tribe, the BIC, the Watchmen, the Nightcrawlers, and possibly Insomniac and Sick with It. That is 5 games. They have to play 2/3 of an A7FL season to win the championship.
Against excluding the Snow Tribe, against a defending champ in BIC,
the number 1 seed in the Northeast.
Number 1 Northeast seed. If they beat the Animals, and if they don't, if the Animals somehow beat the Watchmen in that game, if everything goes chalk because the Renegades could somehow make it, whatever. But if it's not Watchmen, it would then be the Animals with their former quarterback. So either game is still a really tough matchup, especially if the Animals pull it out against Watchmen.
They're going to think Corey's super biased, so they'll say, because he said exclude the Snow Tribe. I'm not going to exclude the Snow Tribe, and here's why. I'm going to tell you why I'm not going to exclude them, right? Whether the Snow Tribe, we're not going to sit here and think that the Snow Tribe are going to win, right? But that's our job to say that they're not going to win. Those guys are not sitting at home thinking that they're not going to win. I want to be very clear with you.
Let's frame it this way.
Hold on. That makes listen. A wounded animal is way more dangerous than an animal that has no clue what's going. You know, he's like, oh, this kid's cool. The Snow Tribe guys, if they lose, they're gonna go out with a bang. That doesn't make the schedule for the U any easier because they have the Snow Tribe first. The Snow Tribe are gonna give them the best they have, and we have to give the Snow Tribe that respect because Jonathan Keels is still playing a heck of a football season. They still have Isaac Negron over there that can tackle somebody, roll an ankle. These things are possible. If a key player in the U gets hurt playing against a hungry Snow Tribe team because they were asleep or they thought, oh, this was going to be a walk in the park, bro, that's their season. It's over. Whether they beat the Snow Tribe or not, Snow Tribe did enough damage for them to not be able to continue in the playoffs. So I wouldn't be looking past the Snow Tribe.
I'm not saying look past. I'm just saying in the route. I mean, I'd rather play the Snow Tribe, for instance, than their next opponent, BIC. But then, in comparison, I think what you're saying, Rob, makes a lot of sense because if you look at the other routes to the playoffs, and we obviously going to exclude the Florida and Ohio division, but if you look at, for instance, the Sick-Witted Force game, right? We don't have to pick the winner. We'll do that later. But Sick-Witted Force game, second round, I would ask you this, Rob. Would you rather play the Snow Tribe or the winner of Vibe OTT? That's a second round matchup. I'd rather play Vibe or OTT than Snow Tribe if I was sick with it. So the U first round is a tougher opponent than whoever wins that
right.
So I'm not taking away from Snow Tribe. What I'm saying is that in that route, that's really tough for the U. It starts that second week. They're playing championship level opponent. Watchmen, championship level opponent. Nightcrawlers, and I'll get to that in a little bit, championship level opponent. And then whoever comes out of the West, whether it's who we expect or someone surprising.
It's a championship level opponent.
And that's 1, 2, 3, 4 championship level games in a row for the U. You look at Insomniacs, they play the Kryptonite, not a championship level opponent. The next level would be maybe the Aces. Let's give them a chance there. They're a division winner, even though we don't respect the division. Maybe that's a championship level opponent. The next would be either that Sick-Witted Force, and then they play the Chaos. And what of those 4 games? There's 2, maybe 3 legit championship contenders in that conversation. So when you talk about what Matt was saying, right? When you talk about the U's road, that's a tough road to the championship right there.
I agree, and we see it on the screen. And a question I had, Corey, Rob, and Josh, is when we look at the teams in the Northeast playoffs, outside of the Patterson U, which of those 3 teams is the one team you wouldn't want to play? And those 3 teams are the Snow Tribe, the Renegades, and the Animals. Josh.
It's got to be the Animals.
Well, I was going to
Go ahead, Josh. Go ahead, Josh. My bad. I ruin everything.
appreciate-
I've been good. I haven't derailed
Thank you,
the show
Corey.
yet. So there it goes.
Shut up, Corey.
Yeah, we do. We've had him enough on our show. I understand completely. I know. Out of out of those three, like I mean, we've tried having Corey. Probably about a 45-minute conversation, hour and a half later. Thank you, Corey. Appreciate that.
90% me talking. Some of it's about the New York Jets. Some reason I don't know. Go ahead.
Go check it out. But
Provoked me. You provoked me.
We do. We poke and prod sometimes. Out of the animals, the renegades, and the Snow Tribe, I mean, the animals, and with Huffin, it just how do you look past the animals? How do you really compare the three? To be honest, I mean, renegades, yeah, good defense, but the offense is going to have to prove something to me if they're going to beat the animals.
When your best quarterback option likely going into that game, and me and Rob talked about it week 7, is Mike Liberty with short hair. I mean,
No, he cut his hair.
no longer Vidal Sassoon model. The chat was ripping it, saying that he's not Liberty anymore. He's just Bert. That's it.
Yeah,
Bert.
you're
And then he
Mike
was getting-
Burt now.
And then he was getting
Nah,
harassed.
They called
by
him
Bert.
Birdie.
Oh no.
They called him Birdie the entire chat.
Oof.
But he then ran for 90 yards in the fourth quarter on him. So
Yeah, he went crazy. He went crazy. He still played a phenomenal game.
Just stats, my guy. But yeah, animals. Rob said it without even saying a word when Josh was saying it. You mentioned Huff. It's hard to say. Look, I really like the Snow Tribe roster. Up and down, you look at the Snow Tribe roster, it actually is par for par, maybe with all three of those teams. But when you have a difference maker in that position that has given guys like Isaac Gomez, Baby Joker, the type of season where he's feeling like he's a Rookie of the Year candidate, you have guys like Lou Shiesty and Bebo having a resurgence or an emergence in this league.
But I mean, you just have to
Stewart,
look at it though, because you just have to look at it though. Where were the animals last year?
The sub basement.
Huff gets on the team.
Not here.
Huff gets on the team, and we're talking about them being contenders now.
But
Like,
here's,
you
but
can't-
here's a question.
They're the 4th seed in the toughest division in the A7FL.
But to form this argument a little further, Huff's been sacked a lot. He's playing both sides of the ball. And that Renegades defense feels it's not generational, but holy shit are they good. If you saw the animals in week 5 and in week 6, and you saw the Renegades in week 5 and in week 6, would you predict that the animals would be playing in Baltimore in the second round, or would you be saying the Renegades? That's kind of the problem, is that when they played each other at the beginning of the season, it was a loss leader either way. That game was going to end up being a toss-up. It was a weird, awkward game when both of those teams were still finding their footing. This game now, that defense seems way more dangerous on the Renegades side than it felt at the start of the season.
This is one of those matchups. Like, I'm actually excited for the opening round for this matchup.
And that's our first
because
game.
of that fact.
That's the first game we get on June 4th.
And that side of the ball is going to be great football. It's going to be the chess match in what Huff is doing, calling plays and executing plays against the top-level performance on that defensive line and a linebacker in Samad Jenkins that is going to stop the run if the animals commit to it. But my question, Matt, to you to counter that would be on the other side of the ball, and no disrespect to the playmakers that the Renegades have, if they're still struggling to find that answer at quarterback, do they have enough to keep up with whatever Huff is able to, scratch out against that tough defense? Because I think the defense is going to do a really good job. I just don't think that the defense is going to be able to spurt or inspire their offense to do anything against that animals defense, which
and you're right.
has
and you're
some
right.
pretty good players, and specifically their pass coverage. You know, Sierra Hancock, number 3, might be a defensive rookie of the year candidate based on how well not only has he made the interception attempts when he's had the chance, but he's even iced out wide receivers for periods of time when he's covering them. So, you know, for me, for a team in the Renegades that struggles to run the ball unless it's one of their running backs playing quarterback running around, I just don't see the offensive output. And no disrespect to my guys. You know, those are my guys. I love the Renegades. But in that matchup, I think Huff is the difference.
He certainly is the difference. Huff, to me, is the X factor in this game and why I think the Animals would eventually move on to the next round. But what we saw those games against the U and the BIC were playoff games. And the one thing we saw was the same thing we saw from Huff in the championship game last year. Try to scramble, try to make something out of nothing. The timing was off because his co-stars got lost in the spotlight. The level of there are levels to this. You and Rob have said it an innumerable amount of times. There are levels to this. And when we talk about that for Nevada, when we talk about that for Ohio and Florida, we have to talk about that about these kids who are playing A7 for the first time in New Jersey too. They're getting a great education because they're playing at the source. But they're playing at the source, and that is a much tougher gauntlet than when you're trying to learn it with everybody else because you're all starting at the same base level. That's not the case here. And for Hancock and for Gomez and Lou Shiesty, these guys played great all season, but when it was the most pressure, it seemed like they weren't able to get it into that gear they needed to dominate, to do the trick plays, to do all the magical fuckery that Quattro Huffin does. So that's why I'm saying I think the Animals are going to win, but there is a very strong argument to how the Renegades can surprise a lot of people.
Well, and I think if CP3 Corey Price, who me and Rob were saying, basically, if you watch the intro to Games of the Week and him screaming is one of the faces of this league. If he's suiting up for the Renegades at quarterback, this game is literally a coin toss to me. With the inconsistency and the question marks at that position, to me that is the difference in a game that, you know, you're almost convincing me, Matt, that, you know, the defense that gave Quattro Huffin, you know, trouble in weeks 5 and 6 was a similar level defense that BIC defense. But I think that in the playoffs, you know, my guy, you know, Quattro Huffin is going to find a way against my guys in the Renegades. But, you know,
the Renegades are going to need to, I think, for them to eke this out, that defense is going to actually need to produce points.
Yeah.
They're going to have to somehow pick off Huff and take it to the house once, maybe twice.
Or when he does those pitchy woo-woo things, right?
Right.
He's likely not going to throw an interception.
It may be.
Yeah, but he might.
However it may be, they may need at least 2. They may need at least 2 defensive touchdowns to possibly eke this out. Is how I look at it.
I agree with that. And let's move on to the thing that we talk about a lot on this show, and we might as well do it one last time. It is the A7FL Top 10. And no big surprise, it is true. The Insomniacs are the number 1 team in the A7FL for what feels like the 4th week in a row. And right behind them, the Northeast regular season division champions, the Baltimore Watchmen. In the 3 spot, the Trenton BIC. In the number 4 spot, the Patterson U. At 5, the Sick With It. At 6, the Sin City Chaos. The Tampa Nightcrawlers are at 7. In the 8th spot, the Vegas Force. At 9, the Silk City Animals. And in the 10th spot, the LA Aces. And that is our final top 10. Rob, you look less than amused as we went through the top 10.
No.
all
I'm,
right.
that's
Okay,
pretty.
right?
No, that's pretty accurate. That's pretty. I mean, what? I might have switched Nightcrawlers and Chaos, but I might not have. I don't know. I'm okay with that. I actually like that. I think that's pretty accurate.
And this was
Going
the
into the
one.
playoffs
This was
here.
the one top 10 where on Monday the first list was pitched, and we were like, "Yeah, this works." There was no argument. There were no phone calls. There weren't
And whether
us.
that's top 10 fatigue or we now just finally have enough information. We were doing this week 2.
Yeah,
These
it
teams
was
played
perfect, man.
nobody. It was like,
It was
wait, what?
perfect.
But I will say this.
Matt sent that list. I took one look at it, and I'm like, the Aces should be up there. There they are. Okay, cool. I'm done.
Here, I have a quick
I'll say
question
this,
though. When it
guys.
comes to that, y'all, so we have the Insomniacs at number 1. Yet, were we not just talking about how they were iffy about whether or not the Insomniacs would be able to beat a team like the Watchmen?
Well, here's the reason why. They dominated. And they're the only undefeated team that played a 7-game season. So you can't
Fair
look
enough.
past that.
Yeah,
you
it's a
can't
fair
can't
business.
look past
Fair
the
enough.
pure data of that. Everything
Right.
after are they undefeated is kind of an outlier.
Yeah.
Like, those are the amalgamations of what we look at.
Got it.
But
Except
that's one of the reasons why
Chaos in the
I give the Insomniacs. No, shut up, Corey. See how he derails shit? No one cares about Chaos and Nightcrawlers. Matt
That's what I'm
said
saying.
7
They're also
games.
undefeated,
No,
but
no,
not
he
the
said
same.
7.
Yes.
He said 7 games. Don't even mention them.
So you're just
See,
ready to
it's-
disagree with me. I was agreeing with you. Not
Yeah, I'm
with
just
Chaos.
ready to stop you. I'm ready
Corey,
to stop
we're
you.
just
I'm ready to stop
prepared.
because you mentioned them. Yeah,
He-
we're just ready for it, Corey.
It's the
'cause
it's the
you're just- you're
podcast
gonna go.
Good
equivalent.
to know
You're
that Corey
scared.
does this with you
You're
guys
shook.
and not just us.
It is the podcast
Corey,
equivalent of a
this is Corey.
disaster kit.
I've been relatively behaved today. But guys, you want to hear
No.
some interesting things as we talk about undefeated
Yeah.
teams? But clearly, the Insomniacs are number 1.
No.
You don't? Oh, well, then tune out and don't listen. But
Yeah, yes, I
talked to
do,
a
Corey. Yes, I
source-
do, Corey. Come on.
I talked to a source that I trust, and by I trust, I mean he's literally the person that we're reporting about. I talked to a person I trust that said, Mark Bagway was playing recently for the Tampa Nightcrawlers and is ready and gearing up for a deep playoff run. A little bit scary.
Did you get
Also,
an
I
answer to
will
the
say
question
this.
about the other thing?
Now, I will not confirm this as a confirmable confirmation in confirmable confirmation speak, but
What are you talking about, Corey?
exactly. Rob, this is how I'll answer that question. I asked this person about Matt Riddick and the conversation that we had with Matt Riddick week 3. And all of those parts of that conversation were 100% confirmed.
Oh, shit.
Well, I can't confirm it. My channels are confirming the confirmation until we see it on the field, but I'm pretty confident that at this point that we can confirm it after we see it because it's happening.
Can we say what it is
All I'm
already?
saying, no. I don't want to say nothing because hear me out, Matt. The big wigs in this league, the dudes that matter, the dudes that are trying to win this championship, they know what the fuck is going on already. They
They're
know,
already
all right?
preparing.
and they're
Rob,
preparing. Listen,
They got that
preparing,
Super
all
Bowl
right?
tape all queued up and just fine.
Everything.
we
They
talked
got-
about the Northeast. We talked about Vegas, right? And we talked about, physicality, all that. Hey, Vegas, you'll see one time a Florida team played a Baltimore team and a guy named Deontay Henderson. Yeah. And then
Ohio's gonna be fucking ridiculous.
I think if
Bro,
you ask
listen,
in a private
I retired
moment,
for a reason.
yeah, we saw that hit live. It was like, Corey, aren't you going to retire? And I was like, nope. In a private moment, you ask those guys from the Northeast on those top teams, the Ryan Shamars, the Kenny Stansberry, the Marcus Coles, the guys who are in charge of the narrative that they give their guys preparing for the playoff run. I think all of them, correct me if I'm wrong, Rob, all of them are 100%, maybe 400% more worried about what Dr. C is going to be doing in the Nightcrawlers matchup against the Northeast champ than anything that happens in Arizona. Am I
I'm
wrong,
telling you
Rob?
right now,
Am I wrong, Rob?
I fought. No, you're not wrong, and I fought week after week to make sure those guys, those Nightcrawlers, stayed in the top 10, regardless of if they played or if they didn't even play a game, and they were still top 10, just based off of what we saw them do. If I didn't warn the Northeast about the Insomniacs, and I didn't warn the entire Vegas about how hard the Northeast hits, guys, do not sleep on the Nightcrawlers whatsoever. I would even say okay, hot take, right?
Call up Matt Riddick.
Damn.
Country K is doing backflips right now. I think
is?
he's in the process of actually getting the Tampa Bay Nightcrawlers jersey because he's from that area.
It's something I've said. I don't know if Matt can pull up a receipt. I've said it. As soon as Florida really figures out what's going on over here, it's time for me to retire. And what I saw that young man do last year, and then Corey said it all the time. They lost. The Nightcrawlers lost. Let's not act like they came out here and won, right? They lost. But the whole league was in utter shock at what that young man was able to do. Let's go. Go inside, man. Stop talking. I don't even know you. Fuck. Hear that. Damn, I didn't mute, did I? Of course not.
No.
Of course I didn't mute. Right.
It got you this time, Rob. It got you.
Yeah, he's over here giving me a fist bump. Bro, I don't know you. Go get the hell inside, man. But, bro, Mark Bagway, we don't see enough tape. We haven't seen enough. He doesn't come out here. He's not on Games of the Week. So we cannot put him in a discussion of Huff, Scott, Sterry. We can't really talk about him in that breath. But we will never be able to forget about him after the performance he put on last year in the playoffs. If you think that loss didn't leave a sour taste, I think the league would have been better off if they just let the Nightcrawlers win against the Rare Breed. I feel like they're going to come back now with way more vitriol and venom than they ever would have had they not lost last year. Listen, I've been warning everybody all day. Please take that Nightcrawlers game serious. Whoever plays them, whoever has to run into them, take that Nightcrawlers game serious, bro. It's not a joke. You know who's coming. All the big wigs know who's coming, know who's there, know who that person might bring with him. Please take this game serious. And please, some of the teams have big wigs of their own. We just said Deshaun Jackson is a literal Green Bay Packer practice lineman, which is pretty big. The BIC had a former NFL guy on their D-line that I blocked and realized this league wasn't for me anymore. But that's after I beat him in the championship though. But yeah, go get your big dogs, please. Everyone. Just go get them. Please. Save yourself.
And if this player plays in the championship game, the entire competitive balance of the A7FL switches.
Well, if this player plays in the A7FL
it's over.
championship game,
it's over.
Vegas
Whatever you
will
thought you
finally
knew
get-
about A7FL, it's over.
but also Vegas will finally get what they've wished for all along, which is a chance to prove against the Florida team that
If
they're better
if
than
that
Florida.
guy
I'm
and
sorry.
Mark
I'm sorry.
Bagway,
They don't want that smoke.
if
They
that
don't.
guy,
I'm sorry.
Well, they want
They
the
don't.
smoke. They want the smoke.
No, they don't.
Are they going to
No.
cough up
No,
the
they
vote?
No, they don't.
Who knows?
No.
But
They don't want that smoke.
as much Vegas blasphemy as we've had, let me just be clear. The top two teams in Vegas are legit, and what the conversation that we're talking about is not that we don't respect the Insomniacs and we do not respect Sick With It. Rob, I think you would even say that you now respect highly the Force and what they've been able to build.
I actually respect after what I saw last week. Oh,
Yeah.
no, the Force are in my good graces. I love what
What-
I saw. So I can
but what
respect
we-
them as the big three.
But what we are saying is the brand of football that we see week in, week out from weeks 3 through 7 out on Fox 5.2 and the Silver State Sports and Entertainment Network, along with DAZN, A7FL.TV, and youtube.com/A7FL.
And we're back on Stadium, and I believe we're going to have an announcement about where you'll be able to catch some playoff games. Not live, though.
Always
The games
fun
will
for
be live on
announcements.
A7FL.TV. And also, A7FL digital trading cards are now on sale. The Ashante Worthy Special Edition card is only $25. There's only 5 available, and Josh got the first one, so you're going to want to pick that up now. There's only 4 left in the world for this Ashante, and it's a part of A7FL Super, the A7FL digital card game that we're developing. That's right, A7FL is going to have a fucking card game where the playoff stats, where the playoff stats will be a part of it. So when you get a card pack, your player is a part of that card pack, and their stats will correlate to who you have. And at the end of the season, a whole bunch of other cool shit. We're trying to figure out the math of it.
How many
Ashantis are left?
4
Wait,
left.
hold on. How many?
4? I got
Are there any Steries?
We're gonna have a Steri. We're gonna have
think.
the next pack's gonna have Steri. The next pack's gonna have some mixed up random, some rare cards, some
how about
ultra
We're trying to build
rares.
an all-star
Really
team here.
If you really want to build a statistical all-star team, to finish my point from before, what you want to do is get offensive players from the top teams in Vegas.
But they're
because
random.
as a division, Vegas division as a whole has not shown me. Maybe they've shown the other side of the ball. Maybe Daniel Packer has a little bit of a different level that he has been shown, or he has a lower level that's acceptable to him. But correct me if I'm wrong, guys. I have not seen a commitment to physicality from the entire division, top to bottom, when we see week in, week out, 95% of the attempts at tackles made, and a lot of them don't land, are arm tackles. I do not see a level of physicality on the defense or in the trenches that is not including the top teams that would make me think that any card that you get from an offensive player from those top teams is ever going to let you down in the A7FL card game, because no one plays tough defense except for the guys that are in games blowing people out and riding a wave.
I mean, I can
92 to whatever games.
I can understand
Runners.
Vegas coming out and trying to basically highlight a weakness as a strength. They want to try and cover it up, because I'm with you. There's really nothing about the Vegas division that I've seen personally that tells me the Northeast should be afraid of any of those defenses at all. It's Swiss cheese in a lot of them, and even some of these really good teams. It's just some of these scores get out of hand just based off, damn, we're getting our asses kicked. And there's just a give up at the end of the game. At this point here, when you're playing against teams in the Northeast, if you don't think somebody like Sterry or Huff or Ashanti Worthy or any of these guys in the Northeast are going to exploit the hell out of those defenses and make their lives a living hell, polish a turd, it's still a turd. You can make it sound as good as you possibly can. The tape don't lie. There's nothing about the defenses in the Vegas division that tell me that they're effective or physical. And that's just what I've seen. There's plenty of stepping stones to go. There's growth. Obviously, it's going to take time. They're not going to be better than the Northeast overnight. It's just not going to happen.
But when your defensive line is getting 7 sacks against the Gold, and you're starting to hand out defensive players of the week every single week, and the first time I see it is posted on Facebook because you beat the Gold.
More like Pyrite, and I think at this point all we can do is prepare for next week. Next week we will be making our predictions for the first round of the A7FL playoffs. We may get a little deeper than that and give our brackets, and we'll see if you guys can play along with us on social media.
Is that what she said? Oh. Look at everybody's face.
I saw my
If you're
reflection in
listening
the
to this-
snow-covered hill, and this asshole brought the show down. But Josh, I want to thank you so much. You can find the All-Pro Jaffos on anywhere there is media to be social. And where can we find the All-Pro Jaffos on the YouTubes?
YouTube, it's under the umbrella production company, Perneda Bros Productions. Go to that YouTube page, and you'll find everything All Pro Jaffos and anything else that we've got. Big Rob, he's appreciate the subscription and everything to that. We've got, I guess, our version of our top 10 or top 5 for the A7FL this whole year. It's been fun getting to put those together. But yeah, for Facebook and for YouTube, go to Perneda Bros Productions, and that's where you'll find everything from there. But when you go to social medias, Twitter, TikTok, all that kind of stuff, the All Pro Jaffos, and Twitch at PVP_studios.
And for tinyurl.com/A7FL merch, Josh, the gig.
Mm-hmm.
Orders are flying in, ladies and gentlemen. So before merchandise runs out, get to tinyurl.com/A7FL merch. The Thick Boy season is almost out. Please, you're not going to want to miss that shirt. There's only like pink left, and those ones are selling. But, Josh, you know the game. Which shirt are you going with? You've never been on the show before. You got to tell us.
For me this year, and it's actually been fun because covering the league, I've probably seen more big boy plays, big boy touchdowns than I've ever seen in any other league. So, you talk about something that's almost factual this year. It really has been thick boy season all season long. We've got a couple of those plays highlighted in the top 5, but yeah, I'd have to go with the thick boy season shirt for sure.
And just to be clear, Sherrod Cervance has been a career running back. It is not fair to say it is a thick boy touchdown when a guy who has played running back his entire career runs it into the end zone. I don't care if he can fit 3 digits on his jersey.
Cut it out. Cut it out. He's a thick boy. Pause. And so is freaking how am I blanking on his name? Hard Body's a thick boy too, and he can do cartwheels. I ain't trying to hit none of that shit. And so is Dot Boss. Dot Boss is a thick boy too. I'm claiming the thick boy.
It sounds like while in the Facebook Lives, I've been getting a lot of flack for saying something about a jersey combination. You've been checking out a certain amount of players in our league, Rob.
Yeah, they're looking real thick, and I said what I said.
On that note,
I said what I said.
Josh, thank you so much for joining us here on the show. Rob,
Thank you
Corey,
guys for
and I
having
will
me.
be back next week, I think, as we predict the playoffs, and we'll have some people on who are in the games.
I'll be here
in our opening round. Corey, Rob, and I will be calling all the major games of the Northeast and Pacific playoffs. And we will be announcing the A7FL Final Four and National Championships. So more info on that and how you can hang out with us championship weekend. Maybe do a live podcast. Maybe go get go to a hibachi place. Did I have Ari Rang in fucking? Sorry, I'm making.
Figure something out. I'm actually looking forward to that weekend.
But in late July in Arizona, you could basically just see sizzling people walking down the streets. It's Ari Rang outside.
They are bringing my translucent ass into the desert. I'm gonna die. I'm snake food, bro.
You're gonna walk out. You're gonna walk out looking bronze or Red Lobster.
I'm gonna look like this.
It's an SPF.
I got my money
decision
on the ladder.
But on that note, thank you so much for joining us here on the show. Go to tinyurl.com/A7FL merch. That's tinyurl.com/A7FL merch. And be sure to do all the stuff below, including signing up for Skillshare. Get some free 30-day trials on us. It'll give us some cash, but Until next time, for Big Rob Fabian, for Corey Hammond, for Josh Pruneda, and for everyone here at the A7FL, I'm Matt Ryan saying so long, and don't be an asshole.
I'll try.